You are now tuned into Celeste The Therapist Podcast. Hello, my name is Celeste. Thank you so much for giving me a try. If you are new here, I want to say thank you so much for checking me out. What we do here is I talk about areas of our lives that we get stuck in. I talk about why we get stuck, and I help you shift the way you think about it by giving you practical tools. I'm all about using what you have, starting where you can. And I think a lot of times people tend to give up because they don't understand why they're feeling this things that they're feeling or why things are happening. And I find that the more educated we are about a topic, the better it is for us to create change in our life. If you are a longtime listener, thank you so much for sticking it out with me. I appreciate you. If you enjoy these episodes that I do me a favor, share it with somebody that you love. If you want a topic discussed, all you got to do is email me info@celestethetherapist.com. If you want to follow me, you can follow me everywhere at Celeste the Therapist. Also, I have a whole wellness center that I created called Shifting the Way You Think. And if you want to learn more about the Wellness Center, get involved, attend one of the classes, all you got to do is go to stwyt.com. Again, that's www.stwyt.com. All right, let's get into this amazing episode. Hey, hi, beautiful people. If you're new here, I want to just say thank you for checking me out. Today, we're talking about grieving relationships, and I'm not just talking about relationships of people who are no longer here on earth. I'm actually talking about relationships of people that are still living. This is a topic that a lot of people aren't aware is affecting them. It happens all the time for so many different reasons. And my goal today is for you to really have a deeper understanding on what's going on with you in the relationships that may no longer serve you and why you may be feeling how you're feeling. So, with these podcasts that I do, look at it as if you are in class and learning something. So I encourage you to keep a notebook when you listen to the podcast, take some notes, and not let this be the last time you revisit this kind of thing, especially if it's something that you find yourself struggling in. I find that around like when people are on their healing journey or when people are in their like late 20s, early 30s, a lot of this stuff tends to come out. And it happened with me. I did not have anyone to talk to this about. I didn't even realize what was going on. It just happened. And when I look back at some of the dynamics of my relationships, I recognize that I had essentially outgrown people. And it's not that the people are bad, it's essentially the fact of the matter is that we don't all grow on the same level. Think about like flowers. You could plant flowers in a garden and some are going to grow high. They don't all grow at the same level. Essentially, that's what happens with relationships when we're with people. So first, understanding what grieving is. Grieving a relationship involves navigating the emotional, cognitive, and social dimensions of loss. It may include feelings of longing for the past, questioning one's identity without the other person, and the challenge of moving forward while still holding on to memories of the relationships. Ultimately, it's a personal process that varies from person to person, but it can lead to self discovery. And if you are listening on the audio, this is also available on YouTube. If you go to celestetherapist.com or just go to YouTube and type in Celeste Therapist, you'll find this episode on YouTube where I provide visuals as I talk because I'm such a visual learner. I like to provide that for people. So when you think about the idea of grieving, it's a loss on different dimensions. And when you look at this wellness wheel right here, social, emotional, spiritual, intellectual, physical, environmental, financial, occupational, all these areas could include some kind of loss of grief that may happen. And not only am I talking about like grieving relationships of people in your life, but it could be grieving the relationship of who you had with yourself before, who you were before. These things are important to acknowledge because a lot of times we're suffering. Feeling these things, don't have a name for what we're feeling, and we don't understand why we're feeling the way we're feeling. Change, right? And I want to help you understand some reasons why relationships change. So if you look at this slide, the first one is personal growth, right? So this is the main one that happens all the time. As we grow, Sometimes, like I said, people will not grow with us. The values that we may have may back in the day in my early 20s, I enjoyed partying Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Still getting done, but I was in the streets partying 42 Thursday, Friday, Saturday. When I have time off, you're gonna find me cooking a new meal, literally like relaxing and feeling amazing. Not saying there's anything wrong with partying, but for me, that was a lifestyle that I had and I no longer had. So let's say as I'm growing and the people I partied with before, I'm starting to recognize like, that's not what I want to do, right? And so unfortunately, sometimes we start to drift away because of that. Maybe they don't want to learn about cooking, they don't want to read, right? So our interests in things are going to look different. Life circumstances are another reason why relationships change. So, major life events such as moving to a new city, changing jobs, marriage, parenthood can cause those same dynamics that kept us there. When people have a child, I've had people, they'll talk about a relationship in their life, and I'll know that that person had just had a kid, but then they'll complain that this person is not hitting them up like they used to before. And I have to remind them and say, maybe it has something to do with the fact that they just had a kid, and so sometimes we may have a tight bond with somebody and their circumstance may change. They no longer have the capacity to entertain us or to be around us the way they did before. And this is important to keep in mind because a lot of times what happens, especially if you have abandonment issues, your mind will interpret that as this person is abandoning you. Guess what? Sometimes people might be going through some things that you don't realize is happening. And instead of internalizing it and taking it personal, it's important to give people grace. And as they're going through the transition or you're going through a transition, there's a possibility that the relationship may not be as tight as it was before, right? So, as we're talking about this idea of grieving relationships and recognizing the status and understanding why it's changing, it will allow us to not feel so much hurt inside. Some of that hurt that you may feel from the dynamic of the relationship changing could be due to some hurt from your past. And because the feeling is eerily similar, your system is processing it as if, oh my gosh, look at what's happening. They're doing it again. And you have this intense pain about something that you are creating in your mind based off of the feeling that you have. Another reason why relationships may change is differing value and beliefs. Over time, people may discover that their core values or beliefs are not aligned, right? And sometimes we're with people because we went to grade school together or college, right? We start getting some assistance with understanding ourselves better. We start understanding what our real values are, We start to realize the direction we really want to go. And unfortunately, like sometimes it's not the people in our lives that are going to be on that same path. And so we have to be intentional on really recognizing that. Communication issues. So, poor communications can lead to misunderstanding, resentment, and emotional distance. If individuals are unable to express their needs, feelings effectively, the relationship may suffer. Unfortunately, this is happening way too often because guess what? We're not taught about our emotions. This little feelings chart I have right here that I got from the Beam website, it shows different emotions, right? So we are human. We are going to go through emotions. And whether you like it or not, I seen a post that said, oh my gosh, these emotions suck. I wish they would just go away. And the more you fight the fact that you're human and you're going to have emotions, the more you're going to suffer and feel like life is happening to you. And so, if you are mindful on what's happening, how you are feeling, you could find yourself not allowing it to consume you. So, when it comes to these communication issues that we find ourselves struggling with, a lot of times we are feeling something and we don't know how to articulate it to the people in our lives, whether it's a partner, a friend, a family member, right? This happens with a lot of close relationships, especially in intimate relationships. A lot of times we're triggered the most in those kind of relationships because they're the closest people to us. And something that they're doing may not be intentional or about us, but the feeling of some pain that took place in a previous relationship, whether another intimate relationship or a friendship or a family dynamic, unfortunately, we end up putting it onto the other person. And then we're sitting there holding on to all of these things that may not be true. So, unfortunately, sometimes communication issues can cause distance in a relationship where you may have to grieve, right? Another thing is external influences. So, friends, family, and societal expectations can impact relationship. External pressures or influences may lead individuals to question their connection or feel compelled to change them. I see this a lot in family dynamics where, you may have a family that member, parent that says, "Oh, I want you to do this, but you want to do another career, or this is the direction you want to go." And it's important not to compromise like your values, where you want to go in life, because what's going to happen is you're going to be living with resentment, or you may be feeling like not connected or just going through the motions, and that's not how life is supposed to be. So when it comes to some dynamics of relationships, let's just stick with family. There may be distance or some kind of like disconnect in the relationship we may have with our parent, because we recognize that they're going to keep putting this pressure on us, and now I have to change up how often I'm talking to them or how often I'm visiting them. I still love this parent, I still love this sibling, I still love this friend, but the dynamic of our relationship is going to look different, because now I'm going to have to make sure I'm guarding myself and creating boundaries for myself around this relationship. Emotional needs is another reason why relationships can change. As people evolve, their emotional need may change. If one person in a relationship is unable to meet the other's needs, it can create feelings of dissatisfaction and lead to a reevaluation of the relationship. This happens. And I just want to make a note when it comes to emotional needs. It's important that, when I got into my relationship, I feel like and this is me looking back, this is not me in real time saying like I'm looking for my partner to complete my needs. But when I look at it, that's essentially what I was doing. I didn't even understand what I needed, but here I am looking for my partner to fulfill every need. So that's important to understand. So you need to make sure you're have awareness and understanding of what your needs are, and articulating that to people in your life, right? That's important. A lot of times when I'm working with people, and they'll make this comment about a partner or a friend, and I'll say, well, what is it that you need? And a lot of times they're not able to answer that question. I wasn't able to answer that question in my adult life, right? Because I just felt all these things, but I didn't have words or language to put towards it. Conflict and resentment, ongoing conflicts or unresolved issues can create a buildup of resentment, making it difficult for the relationship to thrive. If conflicts are not addressed, they can lead to a breakdown in the relationship. So sometimes conflicts happen, right? It's life. And sometimes we're able to get through the conflict, sometimes we're not. Sometimes so much time has passed where maybe we get through it, but the dynamic of the relationship is looking different. It's no longer the same. And that's okay. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be okay. Life changes, life stages, different life stages can bring out changes in relationships. For example, friendship formed during school may change as individuals enter the workforce to start families. So essentially, this is what I discussed earlier around, you may grew up with somebody and we were so close growing up, but now, it looks different. We may went to church together. We may went to dance together. We may party together, right? Things look different. So that's something to keep in mind. The last thing I want to say about reasons why relationships change is loss of interest. Sometimes individuals may simply lose interest in the relationship. This can happen in a romantic friendship or even family connections, leading to a natural drifting apart. This happens, sometimes you get with somebody in a relationship when you were younger and you start to understand yourself better. Maybe you guys didn't grow together and you're recognizing that this is not something that I want to be in anymore. That's a hard reality to say, but it's the truth. This could happen in friendships, right? We went to college together, we had classes, we studied, we was doing it, and then I'm getting older, I'm recognizing that I don't want to talk about like all my trauma in the past or just relationships. I want to do more. I'm evolving. So those are some reasons why relationships may change. Another thing I want to add too is like when it comes to people's mental health, um, sometimes people may develop major mental health issues like schizophrenia. Sometimes people may end up with dementia. So there are different things, or substance use, right? Where maybe you had a sibling or a parent that was there, and then now they're struggling with substance abuse. They're struggling with bipolar disorder that's untreated, or schizophrenia, and you don't see that person the way you've seen them before. That's a loss, right? That's something that you have to grieve, because it's not something you have control over, and circumstances may not change. And so these are relationships of people that are still on earth, and you may not realize, like, oh my gosh, I'm grieving. Now, let's just talk about the stages of grief. I love this diagram because, and so for people that are listening, one diagram shows the stage in kind of this linear pattern of denial, anger, depression, bargaining, and acceptance. And the other part has it all over the place, like scribbling, anger, depression, like you can go from one to the other. The second example of the little scribbling thing that I just shared is what it really looks like. You know, as you recognize the dynamics of your relationship that have changed, you may go through a range of emotions. Everybody's process is different. Some people may be like, you know what, this relationship doesn't work and I'm okay with it. So it's not that people always are going to grieve certain types of relationships. When I switched, when I was at a per diem job where there was a lot of internal race, systemic racism, and I left to start, my wellness center, I didn't grieve the loss of that job, right? So there are certain dynamics where when you leave, you may find yourself not feeling grief, and that's okay too, right? Everybody's different. There may be friendships that you had and you went through some hard times with them, and you're like, yeah, I'm all set. I know I don't want to be in this situation with them no more. You may find yourself not feeling like any grief. And I'm not saying that as you're changing your relationships with people that you have to grieve, but I'm sharing this content for people that may be in a grieving state and not recognize it, what's going on. And also, it's good to recognize what's going on, because there may be some dynamics of relationships that you're in that no longer serve you, but it feels hard. You feel this loss that is very complicated. And if you understand what's going on, it'll allow you to keep moving forward despite the complication of emotions that you may be feeling about the situation. Now, let's end this with talking about coping, right? It's it's important for me to understand and educate people about what may be going on, but it's equally important for me to give people like tools and tips to help them get through the process so that you can feel empowered. Like, I want to give people things that they can think of doing right now, which is why I say grab that notebook, grab that pen, take notes, go back to these notes so that you can feel like you're equipped to deal with the things that are going on in your life today. So, when it comes to coping, I want you to first acknowledge your feelings, right? Allowing yourself to feel and express your emotions. It's so important. Seeking support is important. So, sometimes as you're grieving some of these relationships, to talk about it with a coach, a therapist, a friend, not in a gossipy way. Like, don't go there talking in a gossipy way. Like, just kind of have a session where you're talking about change, right? And growth, right? So this, when I say seek support, it's not about gossiping, it's not about bashing, but it's about like having a safe space to talk about how you're feeling. Setting boundaries. If you're going to work on coping with the dynamic of the relationship, and when I think about some of these dynamics, I think about some situationships you may be in where you may be dealing with a partner that maybe you want more from this partner and they don't want that, and you may be compromising some things that you're doing. You got to set boundaries with these people in your life, right? Because you'll be, sometimes you'll set boundaries and they can adhere to your boundaries and the relationship will be fine. But you can't be upset with somebody pushing beyond boundaries that you never set, right? Those boundaries that you're going to set are there for you. They're there to make sure you're okay. They're there to honor your values. They're there to honor the things that you said you want to do. So setting boundaries in a relationship is going to cause some pain, but it's so necessary to do. Engaging in self-care, right? Physical, emotional, mental self-care is important as you're working on trying to grieve. Why not work on taking care of yourself in the process? This is something that should be a lifelong thing, but if you pour that energy into yourself, it'll be really helpful. Reflecting on the relationship. So, taking time to acknowledge what the relationship meant. There are times when I'm working with people and I'm talking about grieving and their relationship, and I'm saying it wasn't like it was all bad, right? It's okay to acknowledge the positive. It's okay to recognize that, there are complicated emotions that are coming up because this person helped me get into college, or this person helped me with X, Y, and Z. And unfortunately, a lot of times you will see, oh, this person helped me get into college. They're no good for me now, but you feel like you owe them, but you don't owe them compromising your values or what you feel or not being able to grow in the direction you want to grow. Right. So it's okay to acknowledge the positive aspects that took place in the life. And it's okay to recognize like this is really hard and it feels complicated for me. Creating new connections can be helpful, right? Some of my closest people in my life, friends, I met in my 30s, right? So I had to grieve a lot of relationships as I grew. But being able to make connections with people, it's not the same quantity, but the quality is different. The quality is like reciprocated and it's reciprocal. So focus on building new relationships is going to be huge. Practicing mindfulness. These emotions are so complicated that I don't want you to feel like, oh my God, this sucks and just pretend it's not happening. I need you to honor what is and what's going on, but you can't do that if you don't make time to be still. Making time to be still in general, we're talking about grieving relationships, but in general, making time to be still is one of the best things you can do for yourself. Let's go into this quick advertisement and I'll come back with the last three. I hope you're enjoying the episode. Quick announcement. I want to give you some ways you can support, right? I have two books. One is called Relationship Goals. It's a guide to a healthy relationship. I also have a guided journal. And if you find yourself stuck in thoughts, want to get your thoughts on paper, I ask you different questions and I also ask you how you're feeling. I provide you with the feelings chart. If you go to celestetherapist.com, you can find 365 days of intentional living along with relationship goals. Another way you can support me, I have this wellness center, whoop, whoop, that I'm so excited about called Shifting the Way You Think Wellness Center. At my center, I do not want finances to be a reason why people can't get what they need. So if you want to donate a class to someone, please feel free to go to my website, stwyt.com, and you can give a donation. The classes run between $15 and $35. My goal is for everyone to be able to access these services regardless of finances. So if you can donate, please donate to your girl center. I would be greatly appreciated. All right, y'all, let's get back into this amazing episode. All right, now let's go over the last couple of things I want you to think about as you're trying to cope. Seeking professional help, that's important, but engaging in creative expression. A lot of times we can be creative, music, arts world, right? If you start to engage, sometimes people, you don't want to talk, you don't want to talk to a therapist, and that's okay, right? I know people push therapy, but some people have been harmed by therapy. Some people can't find a therapist, they can't afford a therapist. So there are other ways, and some people are better at showing their emotion through arts. So if that is you, be okay with engaging in some of the arts that can help. And the last thing, as you're coping, I want you to focus on your personal growth. You use this time to develop like your goals, develop the direction you want to go, right? That's so important. I really hope this episode was helpful, right? Um, I want you to remember that everybody's going to grow in different directions. When it comes to grief, everybody's grief is going to look different, right? Don't put a timetable on it and say, "Well, why is this coming up again?" It could have been 2 years since you've talked to an old friend and then you have this little feeling in your stomach or your heart, and it feels good. Like he's like, oh my gosh, like, it's complicated. It's mixed. But I need you to, like, when those emotions come up, I need you to grab an emotion chart, right? You can Google emotional wheel and start naming your emotions. When you can name your emotions, they won't take over you the way they do. So if you enjoyed this episode, y'all know the drill. Share it with somebody that you love. If you want to follow me everywhere by searching Celeste the Therapist. Don't forget, I have a wellness center, and I'm constantly adding events that the center is hosting, and there's also events that other people are hosting that are open to the public. And at the center, the stuff that's going to be there, as you can see on YouTube if you're watching, different things around social wellness, emotional, spiritual, intellectual, physical, environmental, financial, right? I want to have different social. I'm gonna start creating new social wellness events where you can come together and create art, watch a movie, right? Just to get together, something outside of just going to the club and drinking and partying, right? I want people to be able to establish meaningful connections. So thank you all so much for rocking out with me. And don't forget to follow me on all social media platforms. And until next time, beautiful people, I will talk to you